hear me properly, but this is Mikasa, on board Mikasa. There's a fair bit of wind going, so I've got the microphone set to potentially, hopefully, deal with the wind noise, but we shall see how it's all going. We do have the option to move elsewhere, but they are doing maintenance on Mikasa at the moment, so there, I don't know if the microphone can hear it, but there may be a lot of noise from various drills and so forth. Hello everybody. So first of all, hopefully everybody can hear me and hear me fine, because there is quite a lot of wind noise in my ears, but as you can see I'm standing with my back to the wind and that's why it's also a little bit wobbly, because I'm just holding my phone out by hand. And yeah, here we are aboard Mikasa. Now, of course, because I'm doing this from my phone, one, there is going to be a limited amount of time I can actually be on here before my phone battery will run out. And secondly, of course, yeah, I can only just, see what's scrolling past live on the screen. So I will try and answer as many questions as possible. But if I do miss yours, there is not a huge amount I can do. Kudzin asks, can you give a rough breakdown of your plan for Kure or Dr. Clark's plan? Well, they are in theory the same. Hello.
In theory the same. Do you want me to set my phone up so I can watch your chat?
It's entirely up to you.
You're used to doing it. Go on, get your phone working.
Fleet gets to mod. So there's Mikasa, by the way.
Yeah.
So now I'm turned into the wind. Actually, this is a good point while everyone's looking up the schedule. Now I've turned into the wind, can you still hear me, or are you getting a bunch of wind noise? I'll look for the chat catching up.
Let's see.
DMT guitars, okay. Cool. Right, okay, well in that case that's really good, because that means this mic set is really good. We can have the
cool background. Do you want me to use? Do you want to use my tripod to hold the camera?
That might be very helpful. Wind is not too bad apparently. So we're just going to switch over.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
To a tripod.
Is it going to fit?
It will do.
That makes life a little bit easier.
Yes. So
I am watching.
Little
be
wind,
nice.
but not terrible. So I can just turn around as well. So
we have tried to explain to Fleet that this is better than Hosh. He still won't believe us. We do apologise.
I am going to put an oar in and say that she's 20 years Hosh's design and build senior. Of course she's better.
So JJ the First asks, what is the HIJMS prefix? So that stands for His Imperial Japanese Majesty's ship.
Yes.
So a while ago I got a bit of stick from some people online who weren't particularly well informed, who went screaming about how I was trying to make the Japanese Navy a subsidiary of the Royal Navy by using HIJMS. But if you walk around the ship, everywhere, not only in the modern signage, but also on the original plans and the original documents, it's all listed as HIJMS Mikasa. They've got Asahi, Shikishima. They've got a whole bunch of models, period builders models as well, and they're all HIJMS. So
for some reason, a navy which worked closely in its development with the Royal Navy adopted a similar convention to the Royal Navy. That seems so strange to me, doesn't it?
Well, the Shen saying IJN would be incorrect. Well, the thing is, officially, the Japanese Navy is like a number of other navies where the ship is just the ship. So this is Mikasa. However, they, in the early 20th century, appear to have adopted the nomenclature HIJMS, the same way that the French Navy these days doesn't actually have a precursor, but they use either MN for Marine Nationale or FS for French ship in NATO to differentiate it. And the same way, to a certain degree, even Imperial Germany, they use SMS, which of course is Seine Majesty's Schiff. I think that my German pronunciation isn't too terrible, which actually is just His Majesty's ship. So it's, if you were to directly translate the Imperial German Navy titles, you would have HMS Nassau, but because that doesn't make a huge amount of sense when you're comparing it to HMS Iron Duke, everyone down there and the models, it's all HIJMS in English. The plans are in English, of course, you're in Vickers, and if you do a good translate on the various diagrams and on the kanji, it comes back as something resembling HIJMS as well.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if you really want to get complicated in terms of ship prefixes, I mean, nobody tops the Austrians. Kaiserliche Unköniglicher Marinen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kaiserliche Unköniglicher Kriegsmarinen.
Yes. So then you've got, so IJN is something I adopted at the time just for the sake of argument, but
Just checking.
when I now when I get home, I'm going to go back and edit all my Japanese Navy listings to HIJMS, because now I can just point at the Mikasa Museum and say, this is what they use, this is what we're going to be using. Frank Sposato says, did you enjoy the model room? Yes. So for those of you who don't know, obviously if we go below decks, shockingly you will lose signal because there's a lot of steel. So below decks in the central area, there's a series of large-scale period builders models, but then down the port side below deck, there's a load of probably 1 to 800, 1 to 1200 scale models, something like that.
Roughly, they've got a couple of different scales going on.
Yeah, and that is every single ship that was in the Imperial Japanese fleet at Tsushima, every single Russian ship that was at Tsushima, although Kamchatka is missing, which I will be raising with them. And then they go on to, although they don't do every single ship that was in the Imperial Japanese Navy in World War II, they have at least one representative of each class.
Can I just say, though, Mikasa's had enough bad luck in her life. Maybe she doesn't want to capture a border even model because of the luck it brings, okay?
Yeah.
I will accept that. This ship has been blown up, it's been desecrated by various different governments. It's all sorts of interesting things have happened to it. Let it be. It doesn't need the extra bad luck.
Frank Sposato is asking, how does Haida compare size-wise? So length-wise, they're actually not too far off each other, but Mikasa has a much broader beam for very obvious 12-inch related reasons.
Well, basically, I actually was working this out yesterday, and the beam of Haida is roughly the same as the 12-inch guns down here. So if you look at the design, the Haida's about the same length, but her maximum beam and maximum is about the same as those guns.
We haven't seen it. Well, we haven't seen any torpedo boats yet. At least the oh yeah, there you go, fleet for scale.
I am here for scale. Hold the size of this thing.
So what would we say? Yeah, we haven't seen any Japanese torpedo boats yet. We have seen some Japanese corvettes and so forth over in the Navy Yard, which is just behind those buildings there. We went on a tour around there.
Yeah.
So Kure is, oh yeah, the original question, what we're doing in Kure. So
Kure, we've got a museum which we are listed as going to because that's supposed to be closed to the public. We're supposed to be able to access it, which has hopefully been arranged. If that's not the case, then we'll be live tweeting which different museums we'll be going to, because I've got lots of them pulled in. We're basically doing Kure and Hiroshima as one trip, but we are not going to be advertising our position in Hiroshima because we're not doing that as a sort of that's a personal trip rather than a public trip, if that makes sense.
And if you look on the community post that I did just as I headed out to Japan, there's a link in there to my website, dragonvel.co.uk, and if you look on there, if you follow the link directly, there's actually a schedule, a day-by-day schedule of where we're going to be.
This Thursday this week, we're going to be somewhere very interesting. We're going to be at the Ennokji temple, which is where Mitsumasa Yonai is memorialized. And we're going to that because, frankly, we really like it. But we started looking at the details of the temple and all the stuff there, and it's in Kyoto, and we just went, we've got to visit that. We've got to go see it all.
Gypsy Danger's asking, is there anything of the castle's hull that survives below the concrete? So one of the advantages of being live is we can just wander over, so you can see there's the concrete. So we've got this deck, and the deck below us is above water, above concrete. I say above water. Basically, she's in concrete up to the waterline. I don't know about about engines. I suspect probably not.
The engines have gone. I've checked, but there is quite a lot of hull still there, and there's quite a lot of other stuff still there.
So the tour for reference that you can do on Mikasa is, of course, the upper deck here. You can go up into the bridge. So they've got the conning tower just there, the navigation bridge, and then obviously the open bridge. That's where the famous painting of Admiral Togo at Tsushima is actually painted, although as I established while I was recording a video up there, which you'll see hopefully at some point in the future, whoever painted that must have come in with a ladder post Tsushima, because the perspective that you need for that photo is about 12 feet in midair in front of the bridge, which is quite fun.
You'd have to take that photo from above this guy.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, it's above the port side
sighting hood.
Yeah.
So hang on, would be this one. Yeah.
We do have a question about from Kudsin, who's asking if we're meeting people in Kure, what time and where would that be?
It would be the evening. I have no idea, because I'm looking for recommendations about what restaurant could take us, because usually when we have a meeting, and this is one of the things we have to do, is we need a restaurant which can take about 12 to 15 people turning up without, much warning. So mostly we'd be going with Japanese barbecues as a good option on burger places.
I will be putting it out on Twitter, X, whatever the heck it's called this week, and on a community post, because obviously with the Kure Museum, because it's closed to the public, we can't meet people there, but we will keep people updated on my Discord, probably on Dr. Clark's Discord, and community posts on YouTube, etc., if you happen to want to meet us up in Kure.
And we're doing live streams as often as we can to keep in touch with people as well.
So do the turrets rotate? Well, no, the turrets are replicas, so let's go over and actually have a look at these things. So one of the dead giveaways, actually, if we come back this way, is you look at the barrels.
See the welds.
That's not in any way, shape or form thick enough to actually be a 12-inch gun barrel, although they do have the tip of a 12-inch gun barrel, one of the ones that was damaged down below. Yes.
The welds. I mean, if you look up there, you can even see the welds on. You can even see the weld point for the middle of the gun.
Yeah. But you also have this interesting.
There should be no noise there.
So this is an interesting early to early mid pre-dreadnought relic, because if I come all the way back here, bear in mind she was pretty gutted during the interwar period. So that what they've got here is quite amazing. So this tripod's gotten a bit loose, so let me tighten that up for you. There you go. So it hopefully won't shake quite as much. Right. So what you're looking at here is kind of Generation 2 pre-dreadnought main battery, because you've got the Generation 1, at least for the design lineage that Mikasa comes from, which you see on some of the earlier Japanese ships, which is a majestic style turret arrangement where the turret has to align itself fore and aft every time you want to reload, and they've got a very pear-shaped turret. Then you've got this, which is kind of Generation 2, so the gun house looks a lot more like what you'd imagine a twin 12-inch to look like. However, as you can see, the barbette is absolutely massive compared to the rest of the turret, and that's kind of a holdover from the period when you would just have a big cylindrical turret, kind of like on the Royal Sovereign HMS Hood. And I mean, obviously you've got things like the drive mechanisms and the hoist mechanisms and everything, and they're still trying to do a degree of miniaturization there. But this, as a result, the bit that I was knocking my knuckles on, that is a roof over the barbette, which obviously between the sheer size of the barbette and the weight and the roof of all that armor, that's quite inefficient. So then the next stage in pre-dreadnought evolution you'll see is the barbette starts to shrink down to accommodate, to sort of fit underneath the gun turret, and then you get the gun turret that we're more commonly familiar with.
I would say at this point, I usually describe these as the donut donut barbettes, because they are literally the gun. It looks like you balance the gun on top of a donut. Speaking of donuts, by the way, highly recommend Mr. Donut. So far, we've all been very impressed with them. They really are nice. I'm wondering why they're not in the UK.
Although there's nothing but sugar here.
Oh, nothing but sugar is also nice.
They do cinnamon buns and Glyn, our esteemed colleague, he's gone there, acquired them on the recommendation of one of the local US Navy service personnel, and his sole review was, "I'm not letting you have any of them."
He bought 6 and then ate them all. He was getting one for every one of us, and then he ate them all.
So the question I saw earlier about why is she in concrete? Well, she's in concrete because the Japanese absolutely wanted to keep her for understandable reasons, Tsushima related, but when the Washington Treaty came about, the only way they could do that was to agree that she would be immobilized and in no way, shape or form able to be brought back into service, which you might think that's a bit of a weird stipulation in the 1920s for pre-dreadnought, but there you go. And the solution...
It was a vindictive stipulation, let's be honest.
The solution was, well, if we completely set her in concrete, there is no human way you're ever going to get her out in any amount of useful time, and the concrete will have done horrible things to the underside of her hull, at which point she could be a museum ship. I saw another interesting question which has disappeared because
can you track down
the chat has just... Oh, that was it. It was have we gone down to see Mutsu's 16-inch gun?
Yes.
Yes, it's about a 5-minute walk down that way.
One of our group keeps claiming it's a twin turret is here, and there isn't been one.
We've been through this. I got the place wrong.
Right, so the Yamato Museum in Korea is being renovated, but as far as we know, we will be able to get access to it.
Yes.
Which in some ways, if we do get access to it, in some ways that's actually going to be better, because it means we can take photos of that beautiful Yamato model without having to dodge visitors every 5 seconds. Is there a propeller nearby? There is a propeller somewhere around here, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah, at the stern end.
Yeah.
The cult of the sea cube has invaded the chat.
Oh yes.
No, for God's sake. No.
I can say this has become one of the most useful things, because as my colleague, as Derek might allow me to show you, that if you use cube like this,
Cube.
No, I don't know.
So what?
The cult of the sea cube is. Thank you. You have saved me much stress. It's get fleet under control perfectly.
So while Dr. Clark is chasing Fleet with a sea cube, this is another interesting element. So this is what I call the anchor tray. So this is something you only really find on pre-dreadnoughts. Again, this will be explained in more detail when I release the full video we've recorded here. But if you come over to the starboard side, you can see that it is completely empty. Now you still obviously have the anchor ports over here, so the anchors do drop down here with the chains and everything, but the reason you have those rests there and let's spin back around again, the cranes to bring those anchors in is simply because if we go up to the bow and we look down to concrete level, you can see that's not actually very far. There's fence there that's probably about 8-9 foot, so we don't have a lot of freeboard. I mean, we've got more freeboard than an ironclad, but that's not saying much. And so if you have your anchors over the bow there, then pretty much if you proceed at any level of speed, those anchors are going to constantly get smashed against the side of your hull by your bow wave, and then you have leaks, and leaks in the bow don't end very well. And so ideally you have the anchors brought up on here so they can be slid off and deployed at any given moment, but they are kept nice and out of the way, and therefore you don't get holes in the hull. There should also be, I should note, there should also be some more guns on the ship. So we've got the twin 12s fore and aft. There is the 3-inch gun gallery down either side. We've got the 6-inch guns, the 4 corner 6-inch guns up on this level. We've got 2 3-inch guns up either side of the conning tower, but if she's in her Tsushima fit out, there should be 2 more 3-inch guns down here in little casemates, and there should be 4 more 3-inch guns on the aft tower, and there should be a few more 3-inch guns on the boat deck. But
I've got some questions.
yes.
So first, Fried Keiko is asking, how far away is Mikasa from Tsushima right now?
Pass a long way. We're on the wrong side of Japan for one thing.
And the hunter asks, does the Mikasa Museum have any plans to drill her free from the concrete to get her some much needed hull work?
No, because she's supported in the concrete now, and B, because of her time being fairly used and abused immediately post occupation before Admiral Nimitz stepped in, she has things like double doors in the hull at the waterline, which are not going to be watertight in any way, shape or form. essentially, they, as far as I recall from looking into it, they've stabilized the hull below the waterline, and basically she's stable where she is, and it would cost a huge amount to get her out, and she doesn't get government funding. Bear in mind, she's fully self-supporting, so it would cost a stupid amount of money to get her out, and even stupider amount of money to refit her. And then at that point, well, she'd have to come back in the concrete dock anyway, because there aren't any dry docks around to put her. We're in a very interesting slice of land, because we've literally, you can see the tower blocks there. So that's the edge of Yokosuka, and then you've got those blocks over there which are part of the naval base. So we're in a tiny little pie slice of land where she can actually stay. And of course, yeah, earthquakes as well. She can't pull an Amagi and fall over, because there's no there's no support. No.
No, not at all in concrete.
How close were the Russians at Tsushima, for reference? So that most of the engagements were taking place at about 6,000 yards.
So about the island side?
I think that's a bit closer. Other side, the other side of the island's not going to help people with the rest. Maybe where that outcrop of land is.
Yeah.
So you can see the island there, and then you can see the outcrop of land there. That's about as close as, obviously not where this ship is. This little outcrop here, that's about as close as the main Russian fleet got to Mikasa at Tsushima, although a lot of the engagement did occur at slightly longer distances, which
Not quite Nelsonian battle ranges.
which is what they expected. Although quite hilariously, I don't know, hopefully you can just about see up there, so you can probably just about see the compass. Here we go, there's the compass binnacle there, and then you see this little dark line that appears to be emerging behind it. That's a little tiny rangefinder. It's not even 5 foot long, and that is Mikasa's rangefinder for Tsushima. So you see that there's no ears on the turret with a big rangefinder. They've got a fighting top, but there's no fire control position on on Mikasa. There's literally that tiny little rangefinder. That's all you've got to find your range, and then signal to your guns. This is how far you need to elevate. On Google Maps, this token civilian says the island is 1.75 kilometers away. Yeah, which is 2,000-3,000 yards. So it's about half the distance that Mikasa
That
was.
ship out in the channel.
Um,
That distance? The one that's static and not moving.
No, that's a bit closer. Frank's Bazaar says, where did the Royal Navy officer stand in the battle? Pakenham was up on the bridge.
Yes.
He got deluged with the remains of an unfortunate Japanese crewman, because
He's not-
Mikasa did get hit quite a bit during the
Not in
battle.
the paintings, but he's up on the bridge for a chunk of the battle before he decides to go do things he really shouldn't be doing.
Cool, we've actually only used about 20% of the battery. That's surprisingly good, actually.
Because he shouldn't be. He shouldn't do what he did, which was go and help with the guns.
Yes, naval observing officers are not supposed to help you fight the enemy, but to a certain extent, once people start shooting at you and things start getting hit, they tend to forget that. So, this is, we'll walk past the turret. So, I'll show you some interesting bits, because it's quite quiet today, apart from the drill. So here's one of the corner upper 6-inch guns, and there's most of the rest of them. So you can see this is very much still a broadside ship. So you've got the bulk of the 6-inch secondary battery, and then you've got this corner 6-inch up here, one deck higher, and another one right at the other end. And then these guns that you can see here, these are 3-inch guns. And as I said, there should be some more of them, but
we had a question about from the Hunter. What other restoration projects does the Mikasa have planned? Reconstruction plans?
so at the moment, as a few of you have noted in the chat, the front is looking really nice. They've painted her all up, and part of the work they're doing at the moment, because you do have a little bit of degradation in things like the deck here, And so what they're doing at the moment, further in the ship, is they are doing a little bit of work on restoring parts of the deck, and the ship is, in terms of painting and general restoration, as you can see, most of the deck here is in pretty good nick. So forward of the bridge is all done. Between the bridge and the aft superstructure, pretty much all done. And then the actual aft superstructure and the quarterdeck, that is the work that is still ongoing. So that's actually that's one of the reasons why we're not at that end of the ship to help deal with the wind, is because they're doing a lot of work today on stripping off the paint, stripping off the rust, and repainting it. So I suspect that probably within the next few months she'll look all across the ship like she does here up front.
Yeah. It's constant work to keep her in as good a nick as she's in.
Yes. It is a 4th bridge scale project.
Yeah. Someone asked, what about the superstructure is different from a dreadnought superstructure? There's just less of it.
Yeah.
Because even if you've been on Texas, which is chronologically speaking the next kind of capital ships. I mean, Olympia is closer to Mikasa date-wise, but Olympia is a cruiser, so you would expect her facilities to be a bit more austere. Texas is probably the closest capital ship that you've got, and although when you look at Texas's bridge, it is considerably smaller than the bridge you'll find on any of the US fast battleships, it has a little bit more equipment on it than Mikasa's bridge does. I mean, in part because obviously Texas's bridge was modified and upgraded for use during World War II. But on the bridge up there, you literally have a compass binnacle, the ship's wheel, 3 telegraphs, and 3 voice tubes, and that's it.
That's your lot.
All you need. Anything more is superfluous.
And it's that's replicated on the I say open bridge, it's not the open bridge, the unarmoured bridge, which is there, and then it's replicated again in the conning tower, which is there, just actually on a much more compact, everything's compacted up. James C. Beeching asking, what was the maximum range of Mikasa's guns? A lot further than she could accurately shoot. It's basically down to elevation. How far do you want the guns to elevate? I think, practically speaking, off the top of my head, the guns at the elevation they were capable of at Tsushima, you could theoretically range out to something like 10 to 12,000 yards.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And
if you're feeling brave.
if you're not going to hit anything at that distance, but you could shoot that far, and then as time goes on, obviously the Japanese keep the twin 12 in various ways, shapes and forms and lengths up until the Kawachi class, and greater elevation means the guns can shoot further. Mikasa, of course, actually explodes and sinks and then is rebuilt in the 1900s, and as part of that she gets increased elevation to the guns so they can shoot further later on. In terms of someone I think someone comment asked, how is that notable, how's the salvage notable compared to other ships? Well, to be perfectly honest, most battleships, if they explode and sink, they don't get salvaged. Mikasa got salvaged almost entirely on the strength of the fact that she was Togo's flagship at Tsushima.
This ship has survived pretty much because Togo Hayashiro and Tsushima is part of, honestly, modern Japan's foundation mythology. If you're being accurate about it, it's like some countries date themselves to World War II. Japan dates themselves to
1900 to 1906.
Yeah.
But because by the time that she actually explodes and sinks, they've got captured Russian ships, they've got more advanced pre-dreadnoughts because they were continuously ordering them. They've got the Satsumas, they've got the Satsumas and the Kawachis at various stages of construction. So it's not
those weird proto-battle cruisers.
She really isn't brought back into service because brought back to the capability she is and rebuilt because she's a militarily useful asset.
Echo Mage asking, how effective was the Hail of Fire design doctrine with the secondary batteries? It was quite effective at Tsushima.
It's arguably what killed the Russian fleet.
But there is I would put a qualifier to that, which is that partly, yes, you're throwing a lot of shells at the enemy, so it turns out you can disable a pre-dreadnought doing that. Yeah. But partly it's also down to a mixture of Japanese gunnery and the Japanese shell filler, the Shimose, which combined with the fact that the Russian ships are quite long out of port, they've got coal dust everywhere, multiple layers of paint which weren't stripped away because they were basically drafted straight from peacetime to war. The Russian ships are somewhat more flammable than a default ship in that kind of battle should be. And then you combine that with the fact that Shimose is really good at being an incendiary, they catch fire quite easily. I mean, to be fair, some of the Japanese ships catch fire as well, but
I would emphasize the Japanese gunnery. One of the things you realize with the Sixth Fleet Doctrine, that's what all the stuff footage for me will be going into my video on, is that the Sixth Fleet Doctrine is based also around having a very highly trained naval cadre that they are going to build their force around, and that's what makes it work. And their gunners are probably some of the best trained naval gunners in the world at the time. They are literally up there, if not, they are without equal, or you could argue they're without equal, or you could argue that they're up in the top 3, and there's debates between them, but they spend more time practicing with their guns than any other navy in the world at that time.
Fried Kako asks, do we have any plans to visit Aurora in St. Petersburg to complete the Tsushima arc? I've actually been on Aurora before, way back in the mid-2000s, in that small window of opportunity where, as a Westerner, you could go to Russia and not have horrible things happen to you. I was at university at the time, and my university organised a field trip to Russia to look at various interesting engineering achievements that they'd had, and at that point, that was when I went on Aurora. But that was in the era of the 35mm film camera, so I have, I think, like half a dozen photos from there, because you had to pick and choose every single shot. Santi, these are mock-ups.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't, to be honest, I don't think we're getting to Aurora anytime soon now.
I value my life far too highly, thank you very much.
To be honest, I wouldn't be worried more about my life. I'm pretty sure the current Russian government would love to keep me alive, just I would regret every living moment of it. Frank's was asked, what about her internal structure are you surprised about? Well, to be honest, there's a huge amount of internal structure that's been removed because she was used as an aquarium, she was used as a dance hall. So a lot of the cabins and so forth aren't there anymore. The aft section where you have the officers' accommodation, that's still there for the most part, and actually done up quite nicely.
But it's like it was used by the managers of the dance hall as their accommodation.
Yeah, but the amidship section of the ship where the 6-inch battery is, some of the actual fighting compartments for the 6-inch battery are still there.
I'll see you chaps later.
Yeah, some of those 6-inch accommodations are still there, but the central section, that's all gone. The funnels are also for decorative purposes only, because the superstructure that they sit on, where normally you would have the trunking coming up from the engines, there's no trunking there. You can stand literally underneath the funnels.
Which is a weird experience, trust me, especially for me, because I'm looking up and going, well, I mean, I should be in the funnel, I should be in the funnel.
And obviously where the dance hall and the aquarium was, they're just big open void spaces. Although interestingly enough, it does mean there's a fairly large cinema in the bow, which is not something I thought I would find on a battleship.
But it's worthwhile seeing.
Siraka says, do you know when the forward barbette was removed? Based on the pictures, it's this structure. Based on the pictures that they've got internally of her timeline, this structure dates from the Nimitz-led refit in the 50s. Well, they start the campaign in the late 40s, but it's the 50s when it actually gets done, because the actual structure is there. But I mean, that would actually be an interesting thing. Maybe we should go and I'd say find out, ask properly, how far down do we have to go before we run into the actual barbette structure, because the Tor is just here and one deck down. Now we know that the lower decks still exist, because there's a barriered section where you can actually see down into the next deck down, which I think is where they keep a lot of the supplies to maintain the ship. But how far down you'd have to go before you actually came across original barbette structure and so forth, I don't know.
Please, no one suggests we take on Godzilla with this poor ship. Okay, she's been for enough. Okay, Mikasa's been for enough. No need to fight Godzilla. Okay.
Someone says, who's that? Bart? No, that's not Bart. Who's Ethan McKinney says he left a note for you about something about the not for pound for air to ground channel.
Huh? Even McKinney, you've left a note, not a pound. I haven't seen a note, Ethan, so...
I mean, to be honest, we've been dodging between Wi-Fi connections here for the most part. So if you've sent any messages to us since we left for Japan, it's questionable. I mean,
we get about information about half the time. So if we miss it, just know we'll catch up when we get home. When we get back to the UK, we'll sit on our computers for a few days and go through everything we missed.
Because whenever you connect to hotel Wi-Fi, it's just like ping, 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 ping.
Good God, we're started.
So I'm just scrolling through the chats again. The Martin Yard behind you look inviting. Is that possible? Well, climbing them.
No, not climbing them. He's not.
In theory, it would be possible because since Japan is a very law-abiding society, unlike basically every other museum ship where those ladders have massive perspex blanking plates on them, there's literally just an A4 sign that says, please do not climb the ladder. And everybody just says, oh, okay, we won't climb the ladder then. However, we have been advised that although all the rungs are there, because the only time anyone goes up there is, properly belayed and roped up for maintenance, there is a chance that any random rung, most of the rungs should be good, but random rungs may not be. And I don't want to find out the hard way. Yes, we have met Captain Greg.
Yes.
He's a absolutely wonderful curator.
He is a lovely guy. He's an absolute superstar, and he has been so friendly and so kind. We cannot say anything nicer about the guy because he's just he's led us do all sorts of things, which we won't.
Rob says no offense, but you need a better data plan. I think the
Sorry.
Okay, that might be better. Sorry, apparently at some point we disconnected from the ship's Wi-Fi. I've just reconnected, so that might be...
Yeah, we're okay now.
That might be better. Have you been on the bridge yet? Yes, so...
Shall we see if we can get them onto the bridge?
There's not
a
huge number of people around. Yeah, the main reason we were down here, apart from the fact I suspect the wind is going to be even worse up there, is lots of people obviously want to go on the bridge, and we don't want to have a ton of people accidentally in a live stream they didn't volunteer for. So for people asking about the state of the below decks, we haven't been below the level below us, but we've seen at least one level down. So at least one deck level down below the waterline is fully, as intact as it's ever going to be. Yeah. Is Mikasa designed for smaller Japanese sailors, like small passenger technology? I haven't had any problems in that regard. I mean, hatchways seem big, nice and big enough. There's one or two places you need to duck, but that's the armoured hatchways into the ship's citadel, which isn't exactly surprising. So we are now reconnected to the Wi-Fi. So, I mean, obviously, how fast that Wi-Fi is, I don't know. But there's not a lot I can do about that because, as other people pointed out, I don't want to be using... I think this live stream would eat up every single bit of data I've got and more and result in a massive bill if I was to do it on my data plan. Even if my data plan would connect in Japan, which I don't think it will.
It's £7.50 a day for me, so I only use it on days when we're travelling.
Yeah, and it would cap out very quickly doing a live stream. So that's here's a 3-inch gun.
The one over there actually moves around.
There's a view over the forward turret. Oh yeah, here's the conning tower. There's no access hatch. There's just this additional armor plate, and then I'll probably lose signal doing this. But you have to scooch through, and then that's your access to the conning tower. Frank's first. Do you like seeing the Yamato shell in person? Yeah, there's a white painted Yamato shell down at the entrance.
Now, normally when we do this, we'll have about 2 or 3 people here, but the one advantage with being slightly overweight and still trying to lose weight is I can use my weight to help me. As you can see, the guns still move. And you can decide which exact building you want to take out, because it is a 3-inch high explosive shell, so most of these buildings are designed for that.
And the ones on the gun gallery are actually elevatable as well. So let's go up. So, yeah. Oh, of course, we're in the shadow of the bridge structure.
Yeah.
We're in the wind shadow. So there's the day-to-day bridge. And now this is going to be the.
This is going to be windy.
Here's the open bridge. So here's the rangefinder I was talking about earlier. It's not exactly the world's largest. And this is, yeah, this wind is ridiculous. So let's go back down into the wind shadow.
This is dark hinder, I think.
Don't flip me. Right. Aha. Here we have found a wind shadow area. It's right in front of the funnel. So let's go over here. How's that? I'm just in this very narrow passageway between the back of the bridge and the rest of the ship. Code Monkey, is there any Tsushima battle damage that is still visible? There is some Tsushima battle damage that they've preserved, but also in other areas they've replicated it on in bits that they've reconstructed. Where they've actually basically re-damaged it. There's also some fragments of the ship that were removed after Tsushima because they were so badly damaged, and they have been preserved on the ship as artifacts.
Which are pretty cool to go see. They are.
The Hunter says, getting some fantastic footage of Drax's beard. Right. What should we? No, I'm just going to say, because if the boat deck, you can see down on the boat deck, they've got a bunch of materials for the repairs they're doing today. Starboard boat deck's going to be. Starboard boat deck is clear, but then you can't actually get further. See, because of all the work they're doing, you can't actually go forward to aft above. Could maybe go into the 3-inch gun gallery. Yes, we've spoken to the curator.
Yeah. The captain is lovely. He is one of the nicest people you'll work with.
Will the team?
I highly recommend you talk to him.
Mike Lima says, will the team check out the barge in Yokohama made from the ex-battle cruiser Amagi? Basically depends on time.
Yeah.
We're aware of its existence, but whether or not we actually get to it, considering this is our last day. Tomorrow in Yokosuka, tomorrow we are getting on the Shinkansen for about a 4 and a bit hour trip down to
Kobe.
Kobe, yes.
Kobe, we go to Kobe, we're there for a few days. That's where we're going to the Oji Temple and the Kobe Maritime Museum. And then from there we go to Kure in Hiroshima. And then from there we go to Sasebo. And then from there we go to Inashi. So
yeah, so we're going south, 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 and then just bumping all the way up north again, which is it's an interesting choice.
Oh, yeah.
No. Right. Actually, yeah.
West line of the Shinkansen, which we found.
There's no wind noise down here, which is quite nice. So let's just check if we. Yes, we've still got Wi-Fi signal. Did you see the real crest? Yes, the real crest is down below. So here's our 3-inch gun gallery.
I'm currently aiming at Mikasa, but I think there should be on Mishima.
And as you can see, Dr. Clark there in the background.
Shima looks more dangerous than Mikasa.
Yeah, Dr. Clark is aiming. You can elevate the gun as well.
Oh yeah.
Frank says, have you gone to any of the nearby warship stores in the area? Yes, I have. I have filled up on a variety of things. So yeah, here's our elevation. So we can aim. Hang on, come this way. There you go.
It's easier if you've got 2 hands, so just let me lead you from
actually quite warm down here, and people are saying the wind noise wasn't too bad is up on the bridge. The wind is quite cooling. Yes, we have been to the Soya because we started off in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's the replica funnels, and this is what I mean by the fact they are replicas. So here's the second funnel. So directly below it, there should be a bunch of trunking, and as you can see,
If
there
they go
isn't.
to my channel, they should find a short on the Soya. There's been a couple I've put up about her, and a few other things in my channel, because I'm doing shorts as we go, so they're going up a little bit.
So here's a mine. That's the Japanese mine from the Russia to the Japanese War that was decommissioned by machine gun fire by the looks of it. And there is a bit of Mikasa. It's listed as a viewing lantern, but as you can see, it took a fair bit of damage during that battle. Now, in theory, if the wind noise isn't too bad, we can head back up to the bridge. Although some people are going up to the bridge, so we'll go back to the forward deck. There we go. Is the breech welded closed on the 3-inch? You know, the thing is, I don't think those breeches are welded shut. I think they're just painted shut.
Yeah.
Because the
There's no weld line, so it's painting.
because when you pull the brass handle to disengage the sliding breech block, you can feel the movement inside.
They are painted, not welded.
Yeah. So, yeah, good paint remover or a chisel or something. You probably get them operational again. It's nice and it's actually nice and cool here with the breeze, so the wind noise not being too bad. That's not too bad for us either. Still got Wi-Fi connection. Still got a decent amount of battery. Bart P says, "When's the next time you're going to be at the Midway?" Probably next year.
Stop rubbing in. You'll make me jealous.
Because I am going to the States again in November, but most of that I'm going to be spending learning how to operate a steam engine. And then I'll be briefly on the New Jersey as well. But other than that, I'm not really going to be visiting any ships. Someone saying the issue with Etajima is it takes an hour to get to from the Yamato Museum. So we might be going to Etajima, mightn't we? Where the twin 16-inch turret is.
Yeah. We might be. That's one of the backups. If it turns out what we've arranged doesn't happen with the Korea Museum, that's one of the museum we'll be going to, because yes, it takes a while to go to, but it's got twin 16-inch gun turrets. It's got lots of interesting things there. So yeah, for every single day I've arranged backups, because one of the things when you are arranging these trips by email a long way away, especially with linguistics issues going on, there are issues which can crop up. There are miscommunications in translation which can turn up, and so it's better to always have backup options. And that's happened almost everywhere we've gone. There've been some niggles, but it's mostly worked out okay so far.
Bob Benson says, is there going to be a public access availability on New Jersey? Yes. I'm just working out with Ryan exactly what we're going to be doing.
I think you should do a climbing wall, both of you. I can only climb up the wall the more questions you answer.
There's no climbing wall on New Jersey, though.
You could fit a climbing wall on New Jersey for it.
Let's see, what else have we got? Warhammer Rumble, which steam engine am I going to learn how to operate? The vertical triple expansion steam engine on, I believe it's the Jeremiah O'Brien, the Liberty ship that's in
nice.
Baltimore.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So expect to see a lot of videos of extremely exhausted, sweat-drenched Drac, but I'm looking forward to the ridiculous amount of weight loss I'm sure that's going to cause. Do they have Mikasa naval caps on sale on the ship? Yes.
Yes, we've got examples on us.
It's not on the ship. The gift shop is just at the stern.
There are also coins and things you can get as well, which are really quite cool. And there's a lot of books and models. And we've heard tell there's even more models coming out soon, but they're not available now. And
there's the Mikasa sake as well.
Yes, which is all of you. I hope a fair number of you have tried.
And the Admiral Togo Soshu, yeah, whatever how that's pronounced.
And one of the things I am trying to persuade my colleagues to do is go to, there are some actual hot springs and baths which were used by various Japanese naval officers, including Togo and Yamato.
This one is obsessed with hot springs.
I have been visiting them as many as I can because they're a wonderful thing, and I think it's a great part of the Japanese culture which I want to, you know, enjoy and get. And they have been lovely. The people in them have been really, really nice about having the lone Ganjin come in and go, hello, where do I go?
Nagato's just come in.
Yeah. Oh,
We noticed a lot of the tugs are named after heavy cruisers and battleships, so that one just there.
Gotta go recite the 3-inch gun to hit her.
Yeah,
now.
that's Nagato. The one behind it, there's a couple behind it. That one's Hayama. The others, there was a
Shima.
yeah. Kudzin says, will you need a lift from the Yamato Museums? I'll be driving down to Kuro to meet you. Probably best thing to do would be to drop a message in, probably send me a direct message on Discord.
Yeah.
And we can sort that out because we are staying in slightly different hotels, but you know, a lift is a lift. That's always welcome.
A couple of us are actually, because there weren't enough hotels in Hiroshima, some of us are in Kure, some of us are actually staying in Hiroshima because that was, we could get a hotel there. So, you know, there are 3 of us, I think, staying in the same hotel in Hiroshima.
Japanese public transport is wonderful, but a lift is even better, especially in these environments.
You just like the aircon.
Yes. I don't like melting. Just had warning, there's a huge tour group coming, so when they arrive, I'll probably have to cut this live stream short because, yeah, I can see them with that many people on board. There's no way we're going to preserve. That's the other thing. Downstairs, they also have a VR experience where you can be aboard Mikasa while she's fighting the Battle of Tsushima, and then there's also a driving experience where you can navigate Mikasa during the battle, and how successful the combined fleet is fighting the Russians is dependent on how closely you manage to stick to Admiral Togo's course.
And I would say though, you can go completely rogue in that. I did test it out to see if it was just, you know, going through emotions or whether it would allow us to go rogue, and I drove the Japanese fleet directly through the Russian fleet, still won the battle. I'd like to point out I still won the battle. But I did drive the Japanese fleet straight through the Russian fleet.
Sir Booms a lot says John W. Brown is the one in Baltimore. Okay, yeah, thank you. I memory it as the Liberty ship that's in Baltimore. Frank's said, did you see the Shinano dockyard? Yes, we have. There's a tour that leaves from about 500 yards down that way. A tour that goes around the modern naval base, so you can see all the other stuff.
We also did Sarashima, the island out there yesterday as well.
Someone asked to pan around for the turret, so okay, we'll swivel around so you got the turret in the background for the minute, and then if the wind noise gets up, then just yell and we can turn around again. Soshu. Okay, cool. That's what it's called. The not sake.
Thank you, Bob. Onsens are lovely. Hot springs are really good. Thank you, everyone. He won't go with me to one. I'm trying to make him go with me to one.
Well, I didn't bring any swimming trunks, and nobody needs to see that.
You can buy them. We're not in the country where you cannot buy swimming trunks.
Please pan around a bit more if possible. If I keep panning around, if I keep doing like little circles like this, I'm going to get very dizzy and fall over. Although that might make an entertaining stop for the end for the video. Ooh. There we go. There's been a lot of chat.
There has been a lot of chat. Hello,
Ramal says, do you think Mikasa is the oldest existing ship built by Vickers? I think there's a few others.
No, I've been looking this up because we've been asking this question, and I think there's some small boats which are actually older, which are I think there's a tugboat and things which are around, which are slightly older. Not much older, but just enough older they are older.
Yeah, because you've got to remember Vickers, Armstrong did actually build a whole bunch of small civilian ships and so forth.
There's even a wooden ship round which they claim that was built by them, so you know.
And then you get into the whole, it's almost a shipyard of Theseus argument of the older shipyards that were in the area, and do they count as precursors to Armstrong because Armstrong eventually, Vickers and Armstrong took over their building sites. Yeah. Old pictures showed that there used to be a turret near Mikasa where the statue of Togo is.
That was moved.
Yeah.
It's not here.
Although if we go over to this side, and it's beginning to cloud over as well, you can probably just about see the statue of Togo. So if we, let's go this way. So if I do that, then just should be, there's a gun in the way. If I lift that up, yes, there you go. So just between the ship, almost directly between the ship and the crane, just above the gun, you should be able to see the statue of Togo that is it greets you on the way in.
Yeah. I will try and get a picture of us standing next to, standing either side of him and take a photo, because I think we both like that, but I'm still trying to work out how to get out. I'm going to have to probably wait till Dan gets here and use him as the photographer.
Frank Sposato, the Pakenham and I believe it's the Argentine naval attaché?
Yes.
Manning the others. We're pretty sure they manned one of these. Well, given that's the portside gun, it'll probably be the other one, the starboard 3-inch, because they were up there. There'd be very little point in them running all the way down to the main gallery gun decks.
There is a discussion with Pakenham as to whether he ended up on one of the 6-inch guns, because basically what happened in both their cases, the senior NCOs who were the team leaders, the gun leaders, were both injured. And they noticed this, and they basically went and functioned. So you basically had guys who were trained as very senior gunnery officers running an individual gun.
Because Pakenham was a gunnery specialist.
And they were both doing it very well. And apparently they did well with the crews.
Griffin Mattol, do you plan on visiting the old turreted ironclads in the Netherlands in the near future? Theoretically, depending on how things work out, theoretically that is going to be on my list of things to do next year. I was planning on visiting them this year on a driving tour of Europe, but that ended up not happening for various reasons. But next year, hopefully it will happen, and I'm going to do a reverse, because originally what I was planning was actually just taking my own car, getting Le Shuttle over to Calais, and then just driving across Northern Europe via Denmark until you end up at Bliskovice. And then I realised I'd have a 4-day drive to get back to Le Shuttle, which doesn't really appeal. And so I've now revised my plan. So I've realised if I fly to Gdynia or Gdansk and pick up a hire car, I can then drive from Bliskovice up through Denmark, back down through Germany, and then across the Netherlands and Belgium. And then when I finish up in either Belgium or France, I can just take a plane back to the UK.
Also next year, and this is something we can sort of start announcing now, is that we're starting work on what is going to be the 45th anniversary conference for the Falklands War. Ship Shape crew are organising and run it, hopefully at Greenwich University, and all sorts of things to come up and be announced. And also that's going to mean that we're probably going to end up visiting the Falklands next year at some point, which is going to be a very interesting and very fun trip, and something we're all kind of looking forward to. And we're going to do a lot of history about the Falklands, not just 1982, but other things as well that have gone on the Falklands. I know you're looking forward especially to the earlier 19th century and 20th century.
Oh yeah, where Canopus was beached and all of that. Frank Star said, will you try and see any of the old coastal forts? Well, we have seen one, which is that island. That was a coastal fort, believe it or not. It's been completely reclaimed by nature in 70 years,
including some giant spiders, which myself and my colleague here found very interesting, but one of our colleagues found very disturbing. Sorry, I'm just spinning through the chat because I can see the inevitable doom of the tour group approaching. They are getting very, very close. I think we're literally going to make it to the hour mark, and that's going to be it.
Alex Lamb says, do you like the local convenience stores? Yes. The local 7-Elevens and Family Marts are very handy.
Lawson's all the way.
There's also we found our first actual supermarket in the big mall that's over there. So I managed to get something that's bigger than a 600ml bottle of Coke.
You could have just gone to Lawson's. They have 2-litre bottles of Coke.
Yeah, but I didn't see that before. Yes, but we're in Tokyo, basically in Tokyo. Oh, speaking of being in Tokyo, I went to the history book stores.
Oh yeah.
In Tokyo, because they have a whole street that's full of them, and 3 of them in particular do Japanese naval history, military history generally, but obviously a lot of naval stuff. I picked up some very, very interesting Japanese language books. He's
having fun. We're all having fun. There's the amount of books which aren't translated and don't come over.
I'm pretty sure basically almost everything I picked up has never been translated into English before. I've got the complete deck logs and battle logs of Yamato and Musashi, if you're interested. Might be of interest. Also, there was a book that had a very limited print run according to the exterior. It's a 1 of 500 special edition print run, which is the collected memoirs of the survivors of Musashi. Again, given it's one of 500 limited print run in Japanese, I'm pretty sure none of that's made it into English as well.
No. The spiders are not huge, they're just friendly sized.
I mean, they're hand sized.
They're friendly sized.
They're yellow and black, so you do see them.
You don't want to touch them, they're yellow and black. And also they're the four-legged ones, which were blue and red.
John Samuel says, have you noticed the interesting English translations of the rationale for the Russo-Japanese War?
We will keep a diplomatic
to be honest,
silence on
with the information boards they've got, and why the Russo-Japanese War was declared and all of that, I tend to just photograph them and then go, okay, I've got the photograph, I'll look at that later. Because one thing we've noticed when using Google Translate and so forth is that you have the Japanese language version, then you have the English translation on some of them, but then you put Google Translate over the Japanese, and what the Japanese says compares to what the English language version says. They are somewhat different.
Let's be honest. The World War II stuff is very interesting,
and some of it is. I mean, some of it is just mild translation errors and so forth. But some of it there's a certain amount of contextual stuff as well. Jinx Lazarus, we are still here for what, another week and almost 2 weeks.
Well, it's only the 7th, and I don't fly out till the 22nd.
And I fly out on the 19th. So
2 weeks.
We are gradually heading south.
We're heading south, and then we're going to go zooming all the way north.
Yeah, the last few days we're going from Sasebo all the way to
Enashi up in Hokkaido.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are going the full length of the country, and some of us are doing that by plane, some of us are doing that by train. The ones of us doing it by train, I will say, are probably in for a long journey, but we are staying at a hot springs hotel when we get there. So in the nicest way, we have the perfect place to relax when we get there.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher says, visiting London next year as well as Cornwall, would you be interested in showing me around HMS Victory? Sure.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind, Victory at the moment is basically a large collection of scaffolding and roofing with a bow sticking out of it, because they're doing what would at the time have been called a great repair. So the hull is still there, and the contents are still there. So it's still very interesting to go around. But if you've seen the good old photos of Victory in her heyday with the mast and the rigging all up and everything, all of the masts have been stepped down. And removed, so it's still definitely worth a tour. But yeah, don't expect the big touristy pictures of it.
I think we're about to be deluged. I'm just watching the tour go.
Given the Kudzen says there's a bunch of Japan-only ship models you can buy. Yes, so I've been made aware that there's a very large Tam model store in Hiroshima. And yeah, tour guide's almost here. So I'm going to be visiting that, because that has model trains as well as model ships.
I know. I'll be in there.
So that's a good way to lose me a lot of money.
It's not a trip. Thank you to everyone who's supporting and still signing up to support the channel, the Ship Shape Troop. Trust me, the expense of this trip is turning in far more than any of us were expecting, because of the stuff we keep seeing we want to buy. The amount of stuff which you can only get in Japan.
I've had to buy a second suitcase.
You had to get a second suitcase.
I mean, to be fair, my smaller carry-on suitcase did die on me.
I'm taking home a giant emotional support submarine.
Have we had any neat Japanese candy? Yeah, there's a whole bunch. And I'm going to find the cinnamon rolls later today. Any chance of coming to Thailand? At some point, I do want to. It's just a case of when.
It's on the same list as New Zealand.
Alex Lamb says, are you allowed to show us the little model ships downstairs? I mean, in theory we could, but I don't know if the Wi-Fi signal would survive going under the decks. Then, right, let's go around here. Oh yeah, we saw the giant Gundam in Tokyo as well.
Yes, that was fun. That caused Dr. Dan to be very, very happy, because Gundams are his particular geekydom.
Yeah, so for those of you asking about Victory, the Great Repair is supposed to take about 10 years. So the mast was stepped down quite a while ago.
Yeah.
They're now in the replanking the hull phase. So in theory, the mast should be stepped up again in the next few years, but exactly when, I don't know. Any favourite restaurants? There've been a bunch of different interesting restaurants.
Okay, I like the gyukan. The gyukan,
Oh yeah, there's a Japanese barbecue by the big mall here in Yokosuka. That's apparently Dr. Clark's favourite.
It was really, really nice. For about 3,000 yen, you got 90 minutes, all you can eat. You can organise 3,000 yen each, and so that's about 15 quid. And that included soft drinks, everything coming in, and it was just lovely. The food was nice, the staff were nice. You had a live pad, you ordered all the stuff on, you barbecue yourself. It was just great. And we were there. I was there with a couple of people who have more difficulties eating, so they have dietary issues in terms of what they're allergic to, and because it comes plain, they were very easily able to go, oh, we'd like that plain and we can just cook it ourselves, and it was no fuss, no muss. Brilliant.
There's also the Mikasa Cafe, which has some brilliant Wagyu burgers.
Oh yeah, the burgers have been gorgeous. Well, you and I both keep having the Gonzo burger.
Oh yeah. Is Fleet there? No, Fleet's gone off somewhere. I don't know where he went.
Fleet's gone off shopping.
Okay.
He's going to get some shoes.
Yeah. Have you ridden Shinkansen? Not yet. That's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you going to see a Japanese castle? Yes, we're going to see a couple of castles later on in the tour.
Yeah.
Any cool US Navy ships there? There's a bunch of Arleigh Burkes. Oh, and the Blue Ridge, the older ship in active commission service in the US Navy, is over in the yard. Augmented Gravity. Have you seen the new Blucher movie? I didn't know there was a new Blucher movie.
Are you talking about a Swedish one?
I don't know.
I think there's a Swedish Blucher movie.
Well, I don't.
Apparently,
it's a relatively recent one. There's a bunch of different Japanese destroyers and subs in there. I made a list. Tour group's almost here, so I think we'll probably be wrapping this up in the next couple of minutes. Okay, so Warhammer Rumble pointing out Tamiya has a big store in Tokyo. Well, I'm going to be back in Tokyo for one day, when I come down the Shinkansen, so maybe I'll have time to go there.
I get a whole extra day in Tokyo because of the way it worked out. It was cheaper for me to stay an extra day than to get the flights out that day.
Fred Cargo, was Mikasa more advanced than the Russian pre-dreadnoughts at Tsushima? If you're going, well, it depends. If you're going by on-paper stats, it depends which ones, because Mikasa is a derivative of British pre-dreadnought, which pretty much all the Japanese pre-dreadnoughts are at the time.
Yeah.
But in theory, the Borodinos, most of which are at Tsushima, are theoretically more advanced by almost a decade in terms of design.
But they are French design, which was set back a long way by de Junecole. So I would say, actually, on balance, whilst the Russians had the theory on the side, the Japanese had the practical experience of design on their side.
And then you've got, apparently someone says Shizuoka is the epicenter of Japanese model kits, wherever that is. I guess we'll find out.
Track it down.
Find out where that is.
We are here for 2 weeks, we can find things.
Be careful taking photos of models at the store. Japan has very aggressive copywriting laws. Yes, we know. There's been plenty of places where we haven't been able to take photos because it explicitly says not to.
We are very careful.
No, there weren't. The Kaga and Izumo were not in Yokosuka.
No, they weren't.
They might be further down in Sasebo. You never know.
We're hoping they are.
Right, and then I think at that point I'm going to wrap this live up just now. Apart from anything, we're running out of battery.
If you want to see more stuff about Sawyer, etc., I've got some shorts on my channel which have that up.
So I'll give you one last pan around. We shall finish with the magnificent sight of Mikasa and her main guns, and hopefully we will be doing maybe one or two more of these impromptu live streams. It just depends on basically where we can find decent Wi-Fi signal. See you around.
Okay.
If you did any super chats that I missed and so forth, I will try and get to them at some point when I get to review this when I get home. Bye now.